Hi, good to see you. I'm
So good
here
to see
with the
you.
beautiful Mel Hiemann today, and we're going to be talking. We're going to be having a conversation about her experience and her particular perspective on this whole separated parent thing. Is from being the adult child of separated parents. So I can't wait to dive into that and hear some of your stories, Mel, which are beautiful. But
Yeah,
yeah, and just your perspective and your experience, I think, yeah, absolutely fascinating. I think people could really learn a lot from that. And that's exactly what you do these days. You're a teacher, aren't you?
yeah,
And yeah, Mel's
yeah.
as I said, the founder and owner of the Centre for Healing. And what an incredible organization. This is how Mel and I got to know each other, because I've done lots of the courses. I started off with some of the free courses about understanding trauma, and then moved through some of the paid courses which go deeper. And as I went through, my eyes opened further, and I was like, whoa, this is such a different, down to earth and incredibly relatable perspective on this whole thing. And having been through
Oh, thank
life
you.
coaching studies already, and started to get into some different modalities around gestalts and matrix therapies and some inner child work and things like this was a whole nother level that I now wrap around and focus on in all of the work that I do with my clients. So I just love it. So yes, certifications for people who want to work with other people, all of that kind of thing. The work that you guys do in the world is unbelievable. So
Thank you. Yeah, our whole thing is working with trauma and trauma kind of being a lot of the root causes of our issues, our behaviors, mental health, addictions. That's the kind of foundation of and yeah, we really like to work on all levels. So not just the conscious mind, like talking kind of therapy, but also somatic and deeper healing. So yeah, I'm so glad you found us too and that we've connected.
yes, and two beautiful modalities that are just incredible, like very much about working in the body and the subconscious mind, which are just so powerful with this healing work around trauma. Wow, fantastic. So yeah, I'd love to dive into your experience as the adult child of separated parents now.
Yeah, sure. So, all right, how do I cast my mind back? So, my parents separated actually when I was three and a half.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think well, my mum left my dad. At the time, only 3.5 years prior, he had lost his family in a car accident, his 16-year-old daughter and his wife.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then my mum had just come from Sri Lanka and was living in Perth with her auntie, and they knew of my dad and that he was now single, and they kind of matched them together. But there was a huge age gap. My dad was 50 and my mum was 20.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so she was like an introverted, young girl from Sri Lanka, and he was this overly friendly, extroverted German that had been, in Australia only
Perfect
for
match.
I think 50. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
so they came together. Yeah, they came together, and my dad was just besotted by my mum, and probably because she was so much younger and beautiful and everything. And then, but what from what mum told me was that I think, I mean, because he'd had, this is his third wife, this is his second daughter, and I think there was some trauma around that. And him having me, I was like the apple of his eye, and he was like so in love with my mum. But for my mum, the lifestyle was overwhelming. I mean, she had come from boarding school in Sri Lanka, and before that, she was in a farming village, and then she'd come to Australia for a little bit, and her auntie was abusive while she was there, and then she came to my dad, and my dad was the most beautiful man, not abusive at all.
Yeah.
But his lifestyle was being an extroverted German in Australia, was partying every weekend. So
Wow,
she was
culture
like this
shock.
little Sri Lankan, like with a baby.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Yeah, and a part of my healing journey, because I couldn't understand, my dad was so loving and warm and like adored me and he almost smothered me with his love,
Yeah,
even though I didn't live with him full time. But I couldn't understand why I couldn't connect with him, and I was always scared of him. And when I did a healing one day, so the healing that I teach, root cause therapy, I received the sessions as well.
yeah.
When I received a healing, I went back to when I was a baby on one of Dad's boats, because he had holiday houses and boats and stuff. And she was like holding me, and my dad was drunk and like, I don't think he was yelling, but he was just like, oh.
Loud.
This is all I
Yeah.
can remember from my little baby brain. And my nervous system was like so scared of this huge person going, "Bah,"
Oh,
even though mum was holding me. And
yes.
so
You're
that was the
probably
root
picking it up
cause
from
of,
her. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
as well. So healing from her. That's right, that co-regulation. So because I was racking my brain, I'm like, what? How come I could never deeply connect with my dad? He tried his whole life to connect with me. I always put on a mask for him. I was masking, and I was always scared. It didn't make sense. And so once I healed that, I was like, oh my gosh. But that was just a little insight for me into why they separated, or why mum left dad. And
Yeah.
in terms of when they actually left, so I think I was about three and a half.
Yeah.
And I kind of touched on this with you when we had our initial conversation. Like, one of the
Yes.
examples was when I knew they were actually separating, and children have consciousness of what's going on. Like, I was only 3, and they weren't even in the room with me, and I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And I just remember being in the lounge room specifically, and this is during a regression session. And I was holding my toys, and I thought, well, I don't have them anymore, which I guess energetically is my family, the mum and the dad, that energy. And so I pulled the toys in, and and because I was so emotional, I made this belief like, well, this is all I have now. And so I pulled the toys in. And so that had turned me into being really materialistic later in life and having shopping addictions and things like that, because I was like,
Yeah.
this is all I have, material things,
Yeah.
because I was so conscious of that.
Yeah, that whole conversation around how children are affected by separation is so interesting, isn't it? And how I think
Yeah,
we affect each other more than we realize as human beings. And separated
yeah,
parents are so dysregulated at the time that they're often unaware or not really able to meet the needs of their children at the same time. But
that's right. So then, yeah, so that, and then they broke up. But of course, my dad was like obsessed with us, and like he was a Cancerian, like loves family, very open hearted. And he, like with my mum, he's like, look, I don't want Melissa to grow up in like a unit or something. So he bought her a house outright. He paid over and above, like, and because he was a bit older, he was financially able to, I think, as
yeah,
well. Um, but he like made sure mum had plenty of money to look after me and paid for everything in my school. And every weekend I would go to my dad's until I was about 16 or 17, and every school holidays. And so we had this, like, they had a very amicable separation, I would say.
yeah,
There
yeah,
was only a few little niggly bits, like sometimes like dad will give me money and be like, don't tell your mum that I'm giving you money. And that's been a money trauma for me that I've had to work through to help with my abundance.
yeah.
But other than that, it was quite amicable, until he died. So he only died 2 years ago.
Okay.
He still says he loves my mum, like, and he, and it's so funny because he was even at his fourth wife's wedding, and he's saying to everyone that he still loves my mum. I'm like, can you like shut up, because this is like material wedding. I think he was saying it out of guilt, and I think he was saying it because he's like, he would say things to me out of guilt, like, when we separated, I know I would have taken you, but it's important for a child to be with their mother. And I don't know why she didn't want to get back with me. And I really wished we could have all lived together. And so
Oh,
he really like would talk me through it, from his perspective, I guess you could say. And yeah, so he really tried. But with my mom, she was still quite young, had a little girl, like, and so what happened was that both of them met partners. This is where it gets spicy, I guess
Yes.
the millennials
Do
say.
tell.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, my dad found another partner, and he always said he was just with her to kind of look after me, like in a sense. And I think he said that because she was on the narcissistic scale, like quite narcissistic.
Right.
Um, and my mum said I would come home and see that she was being a bitch to me, and I was only like 7 years old and things like that.
Okay.
And yeah, so I would share a little bit, like when it got too much, and I'd be really anxious to go to my dad's because of her. But I think dad thought he was doing the right thing by just being with someone to help look after me,
Right.
to have a mother kind of there.
Okay.
And
Yep. Yep.
yeah, and then on my mum's side, she ended up with someone that ended up being a domestic violence situation
Right.
children with. So I'm at home during the week not feeling safe. I would go to school, I was like alone and I was bullied. And
Yeah.
then on the weekends I would go to my dad's, and I still felt scared because I didn't feel safe with my dad. Didn't And my stepmom was had to be on eggshells around her.
Right.
So kind of a sad story.
Wow. Yeah.
Fair to say, like I didn't realize I had anxiety, but I did start using drugs from about 14 years old,
Right.
um,
Yep.
partying and stuff like that. I think because it just felt so good to start escaping,
Yeah.
and
That's what we do, isn't
I
it?
just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just
Very
didn't have
human.
emotional support. Yeah, and I just didn't have emotional support at home, so I couldn't
Yeah.
ever. I didn't feel safe enough, or no one asked me. Like my dad never asked me what was going on there. My mum never asked what was going on there. No one ever asked how I was going at school.
Yeah.
And so I really struggled everywhere. And I started kind of turning in. And I think just suppressing all my pain, and I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't show any emotions. I would be like a party girl and pretend everything was okay. I would be masking a lot, and
Yeah.
masking kind of means like being a certain way that you think people will accept around you,
Yeah.
without actually sharing who you are or your feelings or being authentic.
Yeah. 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 Wow.
So yeah. So what I realized now, that being in the position that I am, so I've been therapist healer for 7, 8 years, and now we teach practitioners,
Yeah.
and really diving into this work was, when I was practicing this work as well, I did a healing on my mum. And I was like, because she'd left this other guy by this time, and my little brother and sister were traumatized, whatever. And I was kind of like their second mum and stuff. And I
Yeah.
helped her leave 16, and I had to help her leave a domestic violence situation with 2 babies. Like it was
Wow.
very hard, and court cases for like 6 years. And
Wow.
um, that on top of like no one was there for me, I was there for everyone else.
Yeah. You're
Um,
taking on that adult role when you're still a
yeah,
child and still needing support yourself. Yeah. Wow. A
Yeah.
lot.
And so what I learnt was, through doing healing work on my mum and on myself, I was like, what when she had the awakening, it was like earth shattering for her. Like she really, when she started doing this healing work, like I'm the favorite daughter now, but like, or the favorite child now, because I helped her on that journey, and now she's really spiritual and into healing. But
Yeah.
I remember specifically, like the one that comes to mind, I did a healing on her, and she went to, like, and we asked, why were you in an abusive relationship? She went to, when she was 2 or 3 years old, she was in the bedroom with her mum, holding her mum's neck, and her dad was alcoholic, same as who my mum ended up with, my stepdad, alcoholic, and was being abusive.
Yeah.
And my mum in that moment was like, I'm strong, I can put up with this and I can protect my mum. And she was trying to protect her mum.
Yeah.
And so she created a belief that I'm strong, I can protect myself against abusive people, and didn't feel comfortable with my dad because he was so safe, and ended up with an abusive partner, very attracted. That's what happens. We get really attracted to people that fill in our trauma bonds.
Yeah.
We can call it trauma bonds,
Yeah.
similar to trauma that we've experienced in childhood. She attracted the exact same person. And so she could still be that 2 or 3 year old saying, no, I'm strong. Look, I can put up with this. And she, funny enough, she said to me only a couple of months ago, she goes, when my mum came over, when my siblings were born, her mum was like, which was my grandma, I
Mm.
can't believe you've attracted someone exactly like your dad.
Isn't that interesting?
But that still didn't wake my mum up. It still didn't wake her up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but now in hindsight, she's like, oh my gosh, like that's incredible. And then when I look on my dad's side, I mean, I don't know exactly. I haven't been able to do healing work with him,
Yeah.
especially because when I started getting into this, he started going downhill with Alzheimer's. So it
Right.
was a bit hard to do the healing work. Memory regression when his memory was disappearing,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But
Um,
isn't it interesting how we talk a lot on here about how trauma gets passed down through families, and a lot of the time unconsciously. So,
and you know what? That's exactly right. And it's unconscious because we haven't resolved it yet, so we keep playing it out.
yeah.
And it's even if you there's some studies, there's generational trauma. I think it's the I'll have to send you the link later so you can
Yeah.
link it for people.
Put it in the
I'm pretty
description.
sure it's the ghost of our DNA or something like that,
Oh, yes, I've
where
heard of that.
traumas get passed down in our DNA. And
Yes.
some people like, but not like that or whatever, but things aren't always activated or triggered. They get triggered at different times with different people in our lives.
Yes.
So we couldn't handle it if everything was triggered at once. Like,
Yes.
no, but we meet people to trigger stuff in us to grow. They're not always our soulmate. We're not meant to be with them. Maybe we keep repeating a pattern, and it's just to bring that light to us, and for us to then go, okay, I need to work on this, or I need to not choose that anymore.
Yes.
But yeah, for my side, I think he's always been, other than my mum, been with and his mum was quite a strong woman.
Yeah.
I've never met her from what I've heard about her, and my great grandmother was apparently really feisty, which I've got a bit of that. I'm pretty feisty.
I think you do. From what I know of you so far. I love it.
Yeah, and I think for him, he was, he had high functioning anxiety. That's why he liked to drink. Like, he'd have a beer every night and things like that. But he wasn't like a raging abusive alcoholic. Actually, he's someone that would always like collapse in himself, where he'd get a little bit depressed because he wouldn't like attack people.
Yes.
He wouldn't, yeah, and he would take the abuse from his wife, my stepmom, and just like take it on, take it on. She'll be screaming at him. Even when he had Alzheimer's, she was still
Yeah.
ripping into him, and it was so hard to watch. Um,
Yeah. Wow.
and yeah, I've actually made a decision, as because I had this huge healing with my inner child, and I was like, Dad's passed away. I don't need to he would guilt me. He'll be like, please talk to her. You know, I love her. Please keep in touch with her. And I'd say yes, yes, yes the whole time he was alive. And then after he died, it was like this massive release of like, I don't have to put my inner children through this anymore. I'm going to stand up for them now. They don't have to go through this anymore. I'm sorry. I'm going to cry now. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I was with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here with you. Do you feel me with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a really powerful moment where I can be there for my inner child now. So
Yeah.
I've just cut her off now.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's set me free, and
Wow.
yeah, I
That's
don't have to get stuck in the games anymore.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's absolutely so powerful. Wow. Wow. Let's just pause there and be with that for a moment, Mel.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't have to talk through it. I'm here with you. Wow, it's so powerful. You know, a lot of people will
It's
relate
so
to
good
that
to be
story.
able to like be there for them now, you know, and they don't have to go through that, and I can. So I guess like, and I wrote a couple of dot points because like I said to you, I tend to go off track with things.
I love your
Um,
off tracks
yeah. Um, and so I would say, and I want to like loop back to what this channel is
Yes.
about and not kind of like make it all about me and healing and shaming step parents, because there's some beautiful step parents.
Oh no, but
And I
this is
just
all
my
about,
experience.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's perfect. This is all about real conversations. This is real experiences
Yeah,
that people are so going to relate to. And when they do, they're going to be able to, that's going to sow a seed of change inside them. And that's just a beautiful thing.
yeah,
How this healing wave of you know, positivity, you know, goes around the world. Like it's, you know,
yeah,
this is why we do
yeah. So
what we
I
do,
think,
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I think like kind of the main things are, if that's brought up guilt for you as a parent
Yes,
because of, you know, what may or may not have happened, or partners that you've been with,
yes,
it's a saying that I heard that was just so beautiful was, it's never too late to have a good childhood. And that means even as if you have teenage kids or adult children, it's never too late for them to have a good childhood. There's neuroplasticity. They
yes,
can they can shift. Every positive interaction, even as adults, rewires our brains. Every safe experience, every loving experience, never too late. So please don't hold on to the guilt.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, and I think if you're newly separated, my message to you would be, definitely do some healing work if from the prior relationship, so you don't bring that baggage,
yes,
and like, for lack of a better term, baggage from the old relationship to the new one, because I've done that, because I ended up in an abusive relationship with someone that was
yes,
on
me
drugs,
too.
and
Yes,
that was me repeating my step parent stuff that
yes,
was passed down to my mum's dad. So in that relationship, I wasn't me, and I was so suppressed, and I kind of like got to the point where I was like, I have to settle for this, but
yeah,
the universe conspired for that not to happen, and that was the start of my healing journey, like when I hit rock bottom, I guess.
yeah,
And and it was incredible. And so, but that baggage from that relationship, every now and then it'll still show up. I mean, it's getting less and less over the years. I've been with Ryan now, who is like the most beautiful, incredible man. And when I was first connected with him, I'm like, it felt like not like a big attraction, because he was so safe. It was like my mum meeting my dad. It was like,
yeah,
would be like passionate, raging. This isn't what love looks like, because this is what I saw growing
yes,
up. So
yes. So
and so
different to
when
the
I
picture of love that you
yeah,
had when you were growing
and,
up. Yeah.
and it's like boring when you've been in toxic relationships. It's boring, and then you have to rewire yourself and go, it's okay to be peaceful. It's okay for there not to be drama. I don't have to sabotage this and create drama. Like, it's okay if they're not, you know, triggering my anxious avoidant attachment style and coming and going. You're not really attracted to that. It's just triggering your attachment style. And so when you're with someone safe, it's going to feel boring, but that's right. If it feels safe, that's right. And that took me a while. And sometimes I would say something and my body would go like this, thinking that I was going to get yelled at, hit. My ex-partner would like do the silent treatment on me. So
Yeah.
if I said anything wrong that he wasn't happy with, I would be in the house as a ghost for 2 weeks. So I was scared to even say anything. So
Wow.
now in this safe space with Brian, I've been with him for 6 years now. Every now and then, I'm scared of how he's going to react, and he always reacts beautifully. And I'm like, "Oh my god, thank you for not being abusive." And he's like, "That's so weird to say.
But you know,
What a
it's the
weird
word.
thing to say to your partner."
Yeah, yeah. But
Like,
you know, it's the work
chewed
that
on
you,
this, thank you.
Yeah, it's the work that you've done on yourself. And that's the whole point, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
and like you're connecting to what
Yeah.
you said before, like this pattern doesn't have to repeat anymore. Like,
Yes.
you may have passed it on to your children, but when you do the healing work on yourself, it can stop with you and you can heal them too.
That's right.
Just by doing the
And
work
I
yourself.
thank God. Yeah, I thank God that I'm like I didn't have a baby with that guy and I had one with Ryan, because
Yes.
to be with someone that's aware of their stuff too, and to not like
Yes.
transfer that down to the next generation, I'm just like, oh, thank goodness.
Yes.
And yes, so in those, so I would say like, and I did a lot of work in between leaving that guy and then I would say manifesting Ryan, because I sat down and wrote a whole list. I thought about relationships that were safe in the past that I sabotaged and all their beautiful traits.
Yeah.
I thought about the traits that I loved in my dad, and
Yes.
I wrote down everything of what I wanted in my new partner, and it was just like uncanny, like in terms of all that being ticked off. So thank you,
Wow.
universe. And but
Yes.
when he came in, I was like, he's not my type. So that like took a while to, he waited though, he waited and waited
Yeah.
for me to be ready. And so, which was like another green flag,
Yes.
because someone that's abusive or toxic, they want to get you as quickly as they can, they want to love bomb you. And so the thing is, like, I'm not saying that people have to do healing work, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm just saying do some awareness work, do some healing work, so that you aren't attracting the same partner with a different face.
Yeah.
And that most importantly, your kids aren't getting traumatized from this person. So a few points that I would say: be picky about your partner. So know them for 6 months, I would say, unless you really know, like, the universe has brought them in and they do tick all the boxes and they're very safe. Get to know someone for 6 months. Make a list of traits of what you want in your partner.
Yeah.
Find out about their upbringing. Like, don't be shy about this stuff. If you go out for dinner with them and they're like, I don't want to talk about this, you're like, well, I can't continue this relationship because I need to know who my children are
Yeah.
going to be around. And
Yeah.
so what was your upbringing like? You're going to sound like a therapist. It doesn't matter, because this is like, it could affect you for years. It could affect you financially, emotionally, your children for the rest
Yeah.
of their life.
Yeah.
It's serious. So
Yes, those
it's more
patterns
than just having
continuing on and on.
history.
Yeah. Yes. Yes,
It's more
absolutely.
that you've got to go deeper. You've got to go, what was your upbringing like? Do you go see a therapist? Do you do any work on yourself? Do you have any like self-awareness? What did you see that was love growing up? Did you go through any traumas? Like
Yeah.
anything that I can be aware of. That's what I mean with like when being picky. Like, don't just let the next person that gives, what'll happen is, if someone gives you attention and you're separated, you don't know how to date, you don't know, like, it's been years, you know what I mean, and you're just like, what do I do? And like, you're a bit older and you're like how do I look here, and like what is online dating, and like there's all this like weird stuff going on, and then the
Yeah.
next, you don't want to just go for the next person that gives you attention. You really need to be picky. And if you find that you're not picky and you're just letting anyone in, you've got to really look at, like, what are your belief systems? Like, do you think you're
Yes.
worthy of love? Do you have good boundaries? Do you think
Yes.
you're worthy of safety? Even if it takes you another year could have saved another decade or two or three,
Yes,
right?
take your
So
time. Yes, that's my mantra as well when it comes to dating. Take your time. There's no rush. Just go with the
yeah.
process. Just notice what happens. Yeah, take your time. Absolutely. Oh wow, I love that, Mel. So powerful.
And what I've told clients in the past is, date yourself for like a year. Get to know yourself
Yes.
deeply.
Yes.
Take yourself on dates. Really spend a lot of time alone. And if you can't, feel into why you can't
Yeah.
and work through that, because you're going to only be, your relationship is going to reflect the relationship with yourself.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you need to make sure your relationship with yourself is so fucking good. It
Yes.
is so turned on, it is so caring, it is so
Yes.
self-loving. And
Yes.
and that might not happen in a year, it might take longer, but at least if you're on that journey, the level of which you'll allow to come in, the standards that you allow into your life, into your world, into your children as well, it's going to be the next level, because anyone that doesn't match or go above how much you love and care about yourself, you won't even let them in.
Yes.
You won't.
Yes.
Where maybe you did in the past.
Yes, that's
right?
right. The love you feel for yourself is just reflected all around you. That's the thing. It's all reflected both ways, isn't it? Like I found that too, very much so with dating. As soon as I sort of stood back and just went, okay, I'm just going to take my time here and, actually get to know myself. And I'm so glad that I did. It's just been, it starts with that, with building a beautiful relationship with yourself before you can build a beautiful relationship with a person who's going to make you feel the way you want to feel. All those attributes around feeling how you want to feel. I think they're so important. Yeah, I mean, whether they have blue eyes or big muscles or not, who cares, right? I mean, if they do, booyah, but but
icing on the cake, right?
Yes. But how do they make you feel? Like, I think that's such powerful stuff, Mel.
And I think probably my last note, which is a little bit stabby, that's my kind of style, is
go for it.
You need to take radical responsibility for your part in why your past relationship or ships haven't worked.
Yeah.
You can't keep being the victim and saying it was them, it was always them, it's them, because you're never going to turn the light on yourself and start to become the best version of you. You're never going to grow into the person that demands respect and the best love possible. So
100%.
radical responsibility. You have to go, I understand that there's certain things that like I accepted that I shouldn't have, and that I did that maybe was instigating them. Like my mum owned when I did a healing with her, she's like, oh my God, I actually instigated him to be abusive towards me because it was helping that trauma bond, her trauma from when she was a child. She goes, oh my gosh. And when she owned that, her inner power rose.
Yeah.
Because she was no longer a victim of the circumstances. She started to go, oh, I would never do that going forward, and I'm owning my part. Whereas this is a difficult conversation, because you don't want to say to a victim it was your fault, but it takes two to tango. So there's probably little parts that you allowed or little parts that you contributed to.
Yeah.
If you can slowly, very hard, but if you can slowly start to own those, it will literally change your life and your inner power.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, what a powerful note to end on. Wow, I just loved our conversation today, Mel. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. I think people who watch this one are going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, and I'll just end with, look, I nearly failed school because of all my rebellion. I took so many drugs and I had this bad upbringing, but now I'm an author. I have like $1 million company. I have an amazing partner. I have a child. I travel, and my life's turned out good because, like I said, neuroplasticity. So it's not like your kids like are doomed, right? I turned out okay despite all of that, which you heard. So there's a little bit of hope.
Yes, it's about doing the work. That's right. So I'll put all kinds of details down below for how to connect with Mel and the incredible Centre for Healing and all of their courses and things like that, which I highly, highly recommend. So please get in touch with the Centre for Healing if that feels like the right thing for you. And yeah, thanks again. What an incredible conversation. I love connecting with you.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to you soon. Bye.